Thank you again for joining the Sensible Assessment Individual Student Report Electronic Distribution webinar. Today is May 28th. We're starting a little bit late, but we should be finished by about 4-ish today. Welcome to you all for taking the time. We have several guests from districts today. I want to thank very much for attending. I'm going to say a few words at the beginning, then they'll say a few words, and we will take a break in between. I'm also joined by several colleagues, Michelle Rosado and Kim Johnson from our performance office today, who's helping behind the scenes. Thank you, Kim and Michelle. You'll see the PDF of the presentation. If it's not already in the chat, we'll drop it in there in 1 second. That's coming. And then finally, the meeting is being recorded. So if you have anything or you have to pass this to your colleagues, we are recording this effort and we will post it on our training page. So what is this webinar about? This is the exact, these are the exact words from when we push the webinar out. Basically, our office is moving from a paper distribution of ISRs to a full electronic version of that to districts, and we've invited several districts, users using ParentSquare, SchoolMessenger, the IC Digital Backpack, and Conductor Plus here. We're going to tell a little bit about their stories on how they use these tools to push the PDFs into parents' hands and parents' guardians' hands. So before we do that, though, I just wanted to kind of reiterate what our plans are from the performance office. Local districts will not be getting any paper copies beginning in 26-27. This year, we will still be maintaining what we've done for many years for CTA, CTOS, Smarter, and NGSS, where you will receive 2 paper copies. And then beginning next year, districts will receive only 1 paper copy. So you can see we're slowly waning districts off this. So by 26-27, no paper. We've heard over the years or just recently that despite sending these copies, many districts are not sending them at all and are already sending them electronically. Apparently, a lot of them are ending up in the garbage and not even used. One thing I do want to mention, we had hoped to be able to provide an emergency copy if necessary in 26-27. We sort of going back on our words. We won't be able to do that. And some of you might be asking, why are we doing this? This is really sort of 2 things: keeping up with the times, and then also this is saving us hundreds of thousands of dollars on our assessment contracts too. And then finally, for those of you that are sort of doubting these efforts, we have done math with not only our guests today, but with other districts, how the cost of doing this is often cheaper electronically than it is the paper version, just simply because between human resource costs and sending costs, it often ends up being greater than the electronic version. Okay, so here's a table version of what I just basically said. So again, the short story is 26-27, there will no hard copies be sent. Okay, so our district guests, I really want to thank everybody for attending today, James, Natalie, Sue, and Matt, to tell their story briefly of what they're using. And first up is our Infinite Campus Digital Backpack users, the Fairfield Public Schools, James Zavodjancic. He's also joined by his colleague, Marco Tade. So James, Marco, I'm going to turn it over to you guys and you can do your thing.
Great, thank you so much. I'm James Zavodjancic. I'm the Chief Academic Officer here at Fairfield Public Schools. And as Abe said, I'm joined by Mr. Tade. He is our IT Director. He'll introduce himself in a second when we get to the IT parts of our slides. Fairfield is an infinite campus district. I don't know if PowerSchool, I heard a number of people submitted that as their platform has something similar. But nonetheless, we've been using the digital backpack for a variety of reasons over the past few years, and specifically for the Smarter Balanced and accompanying tests that we get each year for students. It is a digital repository of all of our students' assessments and district documents, and it connects directly back to the student and throughout time. So if a student's with us from kindergarten through 12th grade, we have a historical record of all of our assessments, transcripts, report cards, and any other documents we wish to keep connected to them, that parents can see, that we can see, that teachers can see within our portal. Specifically for us today, the Smarter Balanced results are within this portal. It is connected by the state student identification number, and Mr. Taddy will talk about how we connect that number to the student's profile in our system. Essentially, we download our PDF or the state's PDF as one big file for all of our schools. We have a number of about 10,000 students in district that are with us. Nonetheless, it is placed in this repository, and on the next slide here, I will show you what it looks like. So ignore some of the top pieces. You can see the one expanded one, which says SBA. This is essentially what the digital backpack is. You'll see that we started putting results and stopped sending paper copies home back in 2021 when we put them in there. They go by ELA and math. The last few years, we've combined them within there. Just so you can see how it works with other things, at one point in time, the district gave the STAR assessment from Renaissance as a universal screener. We now give the NWEA, which you'll see below Smarter Balanced. You'll see report cards, transcripts. You'll see our gifted testing. We give the DESA, and of course, you see the NGSS science assessment as well in there. So this is the district's user side of it. If I were to click on any one of those files, it will essentially open up the PDF of that student's score report in any of those domains. A parent can go in here as well and open that up. I'll generally send a letter out when these are available. So our IT department takes the PDFs of these, lets me know when they're going to be there, and then we communicate through ParentSquare or Infinite Campus at times that the results are ready and parents can go access them. And they're available forever as long as the student's in here and there's a code for it. At this point, I am going to turn it over to Mr. Tadde on the next slide, who's going to talk about how we go from the digital download from the state to integrating this into our portal for parents and staff to see.
Hey, Don. Thanks, James. My name is Marco Taddy. I'm the Director of Technology here at Fair Public Schools. Yeah, James is correct. Essentially, we have this repository, which I believe PowerSchool calls Vault, but whatever platform you're using, you generally have some type of file repository that users such as parents, staff, and other individuals can use. We just happen to be calling Infinite Campus calls theirs Backpack, but again, similar conversations for other systems. Once the file is in there, we can pretty much share it historically, as well as let people notify that there's actually something new there. So maybe it's a new assessment, and it gives us that flexibility throughout the year to keep putting things in there. I've gone ahead. One of the processes we're doing is taking the state assessments that come in and processing them for Backpack. And every system's going to have kind of a different output that it's needed for. The thing that's on your screen right now is a QR code for a Google Colab script that we built that actually runs through one particular assessment. But I want to caveat that we're going to be sending out the script we're running for every single state assessment and every assessment we've compiled already. I'm going to give you guys access to it because we do feel that it's probably helpful for any district to have. Essentially, you can take any assessment file that has any student identifying information, whether it's a SACID, a student ID, which is our internal, or a student ID or a person ID, depending on your system, might have their own internal ID numbers. You basically can feed it that list of information. It's going to spit out in whatever format you're looking to get it in. So our particular format happens to be a individual PDF per student, identified by their student ID, but your system may be maybe it has to be prefixed with NGSS, and then it has to have the person ID or the SACID. Obviously SACID's pretty much the standard. It really depends, but we built a script that kind of crosswalks all that information. This bullet list kind of goes over some of the caveats and things that we had to figure out ways around. A good example might be that a student took the assessment, and then 2 weeks later when we go to run, they've already left the district, so that now they are given a SACID in the assessment, while as everyone else has a student ID. So we kind of look for those type of anomalies and actually accommodate for it by having both databases simultaneously running, and then we can properly spit it out. So we're still actually vaulting and putting that information into our own backpack for historical purposes, even though that student may not be in our district at the moment. There's going to be a lot of questions, I'm sure, about the script that it encompasses. The slide after this, there's actually a link, and it's actually in the chat as well. It kind of goes over a video demo of this script running. But just so you know, Google Colab is a free service to be used. You don't even have to be a Google district by any means. It's a free service that Google provides. It lets you run any number of scripts for free. Forever. And we'll continue to load these scripts as we build them out for different assessments. And because we're using them internally, if the state changes up the way that they're actually building out their assessments, we plan to just update ours and update these links for you guys. So you guys would have access to running the new NGSS, the new NAT3, COGAT, whatever the particular subsystem test is. Who knows? Let's be honest. They keep changing different assessments. We're going to accommodate for that and add to it. And we're happy to actually, if you have any other assessments that come up, kind of walk you through how we're targeting or changing. So yeah, I don't know if there's any questions particularly. I'll watch the chat, but.
Okay, Marco, James, thanks. Are there, we're going to take a break between each of the presentations. Any questions either through the chat or raise hand feature? I dropped the link that Marco's referencing on the video demo here, and also the slide deck has the link to that if you need it as well. So.
Yeah, it's a lot to unpack because it is a Python script, but again, it kind of walks you through the process. You're uploading the state assessment to it and your database, and it's going to do the rest. So generally speaking, it's a pretty useful tool. And because you can run it for free on the system, it's kind of a no-brainer, especially if you're stuck between manually converting files and going through that process.
Marco, it might be helpful to share for the educators on the call that don't have the tech background. If they don't run the script, what are they left to do to get these documents in the backpack? It's a one-by-one process of downloading the PDF.
Yeah,
correct?
so a good example might be, let's just say the state is giving you the whole school at a time, or even the whole district at a time, one giant PDF with let's say 2 pages per student, because you have maybe the assessment results and then kind of that info sheet. It depends on the assessment, of course. Some are just 1-pagers. You generally would have to sit there splitting up that PDF into pieces and then going through each of the pages to try to figure out and identify each of those PDFs, because you do in turn want to put those files back into your actual vault or system and be keyed by the student. You don't want to obviously just throw it up into the system and hope for the best that it's actually going to be viewed properly by like a school or by a classroom, because that would leave that school or location to have to manually parse that information. So this system is going to look through those files, identify based on the IDs. We even do it by naming conventions, because a few systems, I think Acadians as of last year only did by name. So we actually do a lookup by name, correlate it with the individual. Obviously with duplicate names, we would come up with another check such as the grade to figure out which kid it was. But if you're doing it manually, you would actually be going through every single PDF, splitting them, naming them by ID numbers, or using some other third-party software that you're either paying for to kind of do some of this work for you. There's a few other ways to do that. So, yeah. Looks like there's a question for Maybe it's for Abe from Heather.
Sure, Heather. I have 2 questions from Agent. So, Heather, let's do this. Why don't we, or hold on. We typically keep 100 students commit file. If we are still using paper, the files loaded to DA and typed so that they could print them. Yeah. So the question is basically where are we loading those files to? That's a very good question, Heather. Those files will be loaded to the DA secure inbox in Tide. So Heather, I'm just going to use the example. You're the DA at RSD17. In August, the giant PDF file will appear in your secure inbox. We've already had the request to put it in like maybe more than just the DA, but like the DA plus like the DCs or something like that. Yeah, so that's where you would find them. All right, James, Marco, thank you. I'm gonna carry on to our next, Natalie Kerrigan from the Westport Public Schools is gonna take the baton for the SchoolMessenger use in Westport. Natalie?
Good afternoon. So we have used SchoolMessenger for about 10 years, and we've used the secure files for probably about 8. We started with NWEA and then Ames Web, and we were very happy when the state provided us the same documents so that we're using SBAC. Also, in full disclosure, we are moving from SchoolMessenger to ParentSquare next year. We're very happy with the secure files, but there's other features that ParentSquare happens to have that we're going to take advantage of, and Sue can tell you all about that. But we're using this right now, so I'm presenting from SchoolMessenger. It is bought out and owned now by PowerSchool, and our pricing, we've been a long time customer, so I'm not sure how everybody else's pricing is, but our pricing is only 32 cents per student on top for the secure file. So if you figure stamps now are 70 cents, just the fact that we send one thing home with SchoolMessenger more than pays for that secure file. Next slide, Abe. All right, so this is much simpler because it's just sending the document to the parents. It's literally emailing the parents. So you log into SchoolMessenger, then you're going to choose broadcasts, and from broadcast, then you're going to choose, it's circled in red, the SDD, which is the secure document delivery. From there, you're going to choose that you're going to do a new self-service document. They used to have to help you, but now you can do it on your own. Next slide. So from there, you're going to create a new document. So over on the left, you give it a title of what it's going to be. You chose self-service. Then the next thing is you talk about what's the actual unique ID from each kid that they're looking for on the form itself. So with the state, we use the SACID. So you just type in SACID in the pattern that it's looking for. And then you have the drop-down list. So there's a side screenshot of what you can pick off the drop-down list. So obviously for the state, we match it with the SACID, but for NWEA, we use our unique IDs, our local IDs. So you can go back and forth depending on what the document is. Then you're going to choose your file. So go to the next slide. So what we did is we went into Tide, into the DA secure area. I downloaded them to our servers. We leave them as 4 separate files, and we send this out in 4 different ways, mainly because there is a size limit. So our district has 5,400 kids, and we're just shy of being able to send it out in one document. So in one time. So what we've done is we've created cover letters for the ESPA, for the NGSS, CTAS, and CTAA that are all just slightly different. And I have an example for you in the end. So right now I'm going to say here, I'm going to collect, actually, I'm going to pick the CTAA and go to the next screen. And then it will give me some verification before it goes out. So from our CTAA files, we had 6 deliverable portions, and it can automatically tell you how many pages there are per document. So ESPA is 2 per document, NWEA is 1 page per student, so you can verify that it's reading it right. It does have to be the same for the whole set. So you can't have some kids have 3 pages and other kids have 1 page. Next slide. As you scroll down in this verification, then you get your deliverable portions, and it literally lists out every kid, their first name, last name, and their identifier, so you can double check. And then over toward the left, you have the page numbers and then the page count. So you literally can find each individual child if you need to on the report to know and verify that they were sent or going to be sent. And below that, you have the portions. So originally I gave you the screenshot of the deliverable portions, but there's one that says I'm going to ignore it. So it will show you the pages that are going to be ignored. And this particular kid had left our system, so he was not an active PowerSchool kid. So we can choose to print and just put it in the queue that we're holding. We can go find pages 13 and 14 and make it a separate email list or send it through snail mail. And then we automatically see who our exceptions are. Next slide. Then you set up your broadcast settings. So here we can send it to email 1 and 2, which is contact 1 and 2 for our parents, or we can send it to somebody in general. Some of these settings are just for other things. You also can send it to the student who is the contact or to the associated guardians. We only send it to the parents. Next slide. Again, as you're setting this up, you're literally just scrolling down the page and you can set the date and time. You need a minimum of an hour to send it out. You can require a password on this. Essentially what they're going to get, if you click the next page, is a parent gets an email with a message, and here's the generic message that says, hey, we've got a document for this student. Click here for the document. You can change this letter. I'll show you how we do it in a second. You don't want to edit the yellow part because that's the programming underneath, but you don't have to have any coding. And the link is active for 30 days. So there's good and bad to that. One, we don't have these emails sitting out there with links to student data. So for student data privacy, they become useless after 30 days. But because they become useless after 30 days, we do have some parents come back and say, my link won't work. I have 5,400 kids. I maybe get 3 requests a year for the people to send me the copy a second time. So it's not a huge amount of users that come back. And the other thing is, if parents have more than 1 child, or you're getting the SBAC and the NGSS, when you look at it on a phone, sometimes the messages stack up so that they're missing their second child, and we just say open it on a computer and then you can see all of your emails. Again, that's a dozen or so parents that have that issue, but those are just some of the relative disadvantages, so to speak, of SchoolMessenger. If you want to click the last slide, Abe. So what we do is we have the message from our assistant superintendent that talks about, hey, here's the individual report. We also link to the Q&A from the state in here, and we give them at the top, you know, click the link at the bottom, that's your link. But since we send all of our documents home this way, everybody's gotten comfortable with knowing how to read the letter and then finding the link at the end, and that's the way SchoolMessenger works. Questions?
Any questions for Natalie? You can either drop them in the chat or raise hand feature will also take them there. Okay, thanks Natalie. Thanks for covering that. So next up is a third option. Sue Smay from the Hamden Public Schools is going to touch on their use of ParentSquare, the ParentSquare secure document delivery system. And Sue, I'm going to turn it over to you. Sue.
Thank Thank you, Abe. Hi, everyone. If you go to the next slide, I can show you a few things about ParentSquare. First of all, we have PowerSchool as our student information system, and we had used SchoolMessenger all the way up until about 1 year ago. So last spring was our first time using the secure document delivery for ParentSquare. The secure document delivery is an add-on to their Engage package, so it's an Engage premium package. We are paying $6 per student for this package. I honestly can't say enough about how user-friendly it is. ParentSquare in itself is a great platform, but for sending documents, it has some features that I appreciate that I did not find with other programs, and that would be it's so easy to use that we open it up to teachers to use it. And they have been using it to send progress reports or other things that should be secure. Next slide, please. I may have oversimplified some of my message here because maybe I'm thinking how easy it is to use, but some of the steps have already been mentioned. Obviously, you have to start by downloading the PDFs from the state assessment portal. It's very, very simple. Once you go into ParentSquare and you go to the secure document tab, you indicate that you have a new PDF to upload. And basically what you're doing is creating a new template. Once you upload the PDFs, you have to indicate where that SASIT is, because that is the unique identifier. It's going to match that to each parent that is loaded into ParentSquare in order to make the connection and send it to the right person. And all you have to do to identify where the SASIT is on the report is click and highlight. So click and drag, highlight where the SASIT is. Next slide. Once you save that information about where the SASIT is located, you're prompted to indicate the number of reports in the upload. It will verify that you give it the correct number. So in other words, how many times does a unique SASIT appear in the stack of PDFs? You enter a subject line and a message, and that's typically where we include the standard letter from the superintendent. The nice thing, of course, about ParentSquare that draw a lot of people to using it in the first place is that the message itself, not the report, but the message will translate into the recipient's preferred language. Next slide. And as soon as you have sent the report, you immediately start to get results that you can view on the dashboard that show you how the recipients either received the message or viewed the message. Parents have the option of receiving texts, emails. If they've downloaded the app to their phone, they're going to see it on their phone. They can always go to the website, the ParentSquare website, and log in. But so there are a variety of ways that a parent might receive it, and then we can see who actually is looking at the message and whether or not any of the messages did not deliver. And I think that's it. Quick and easy, very simple to use.
Thanks, Sue. There's a couple questions in the chat, Sue. I don't know, I don't want to put you on the spot, and if you don't know, we can certainly punt. I am no help on the first one, nor on the second one. Do you have any wisdom on either one of those two? Can you see the chat okay?
You're talking about how many unique student records are in the PDF?
Yeah.
Off the top of my head, no. I'm trying to think what it looks like when we get it from the portal. Does it tell us how many reports are included? It might. I can't picture what it looks like. I'm sorry about that.
It's okay.
The
next question. The next one is I think it's more of an observation from Monica. We're having difficulty converting the PDF to PDFX for the templates. ParentSquare won't let us use a regular PDF for this process.
We have not had any issues using regular PDFs at all. I'm not sure what that's all about. We've
Okay.
never had an error like that. I'm sorry, I can't, I'm not being helpful with the errors.
I could
So-
add an insight to that. We deal with a lot of different PDF versions, if that's helpful. Generally speaking, the version number of PDF, people don't realize there's anything up to 5 to actually X now. So PDF X is a compliant format, and so if you're having issues with it, you could first just go into Acrobat and actually save as optimized and check the actual version of the file. I'd have to check ParentSquare specifically to see which versions that they recommend. Generally, if you download their template and open it, you would be able to see which version they're using. But that's generally it's funky that way for any PDF editor. Generally, the version is very important. But you could always open up an Acrobat and actually view the information directly, and they'll give you the whole insight as to what version it is. And if you need to save your files in that version, you could always do it right from Acrobat.
Okay, thanks, Marco.
Yeah.
Any more questions for Sue? Sue, thanks for fielding the questions here. All right, let's keep on rolling. Thank you, Sue. Again, next up is Matt Hepner from the Wilton Public Schools, and Wilton uses Conductor Plus. And Matt, you wanna run with Conductor Plus for a few minutes?
Sure. Thanks, everybody. I think that you'll see some similar themes to how these systems work and level of ease of use for them. So we'll just get into it. We started using, you can go to the next slide, Abe. So we started using ParentSquare during the pandemic, like a lot of people, as a way of securely allowing access to documents for parents. It's a portal. It links off of Parent Portal in PowerSchool, and it creates folders so you can have kind of categories. And you'll see that in the presentation. We've been doing the SBA documents this way since, I think, 2022. Abe will have to, or 2021 or 2022. Abe will have to remind me. I think it was 2021. And we got the idea from Bethel Schools. The company was bought out. They were originally called WebEdge. Now they're Conductor Plus. They're owned by Educational Vistas. It is very simple to use. If you go to the next slide, I'll just kind of walk you through the process. You log into the system. You upload your images. So the first thing you want to do is look through the image and just sort of understand how many documents you have, how many records they're going to be. And then after it loads, it'll let you know that it's processed. Educational Vistas creates templates. So if they have never seen an assessment, then they'll have to build a template for you, similar to what the way SchoolMessenger works. You send them a sample, they create a template, and then you load. But for most things that are out there already, they have templates already. So they have templates for NWEA, and they have them already for state testing. So you don't actually need to do anything other than load the documents. Once that happens, I usually go through and kind of hand check maybe 10 or 15 students just to make sure that they're in the right folders, that they've loaded properly, and then you're good to go. What we then do is we have ParentSquare. We don't have that add-on, and we just send a message to parents that they've been loaded into the portfolio. You can log into PowerSchool and see them. So it's a very simple process on our end for loading. And parents, after that first time of logging into it, then parents, I really have very few parents who have trouble finding things. If you go to the next slide, we'll just kind of go through the steps now. So this is, it's web-based. So you log into the system. This is my login. And then the next step is you find the image that you're going to load. So I usually rename them a logical name. So like this is last year, I named the SBA data SBAC 2024. And you see up at the top, you choose the document type. So we have different types. We have NWEA, we have DIBBLES, and then a subtype. So if it's some of our individualized reporting that we use the portal for, there'll be subtypes for this. There is no subtype. The next step, you'll just check your processing status. So this is still uploading images. Go to the next. And you'll see that it will let you know that it's finished. And if you had a wider view of this, it will tell you how many images it loaded. So it will tell you loaded, 247 images. And if you know you had 247 third grade SBA documents, then you're done. And then so the next step is you can actually impersonate a parent. So you can look up a student's ID and see what the parents see. So this is what the parents would see. And you'll see that that's arranged in folders, and under SBA, different years of documents are there, and you can see a little corner of the PDF of this 8th grade student. The way they get to Conductor Plus is they just log into PowerSchool Parent Portal, and there is an additional, it's a plugin, so there's just a button on there that says Student Portfolio, and they click it and they get to this screen. And that's really it. It is a pretty easy system to use. The only time we've really had any problems with Conductor Plus in the last 5 years are the self-created documents that we have. If you don't keep your ID in the exact same spot from year to year, or you change the font size, then Conductor support will have to make a new template for you or fix your problem for you. But their support's been excellent, so we've been pretty happy with them. And that's it. Next slides just tell you my information. If you have any question, if you want to reach out to me. The next slide is the pricing. For us, it's $1. And again, we've been a long time customer, so I don't know if this applies to everyone, but it's $1 per student. And then there's a maintenance that it's roughly $1,000 every year, just to roll over to the next year and sync with your PowerSchool system. I will say one small point of difference of this versus SchoolMessenger and some of the other systems. On my end, if a parent leaves the district and wants to retrieve records, those, even though the parent can't log into PowerSchool anymore because they've been disabled, I can log into WebEdge and find those documents for them. And so it's still archived, people who are no longer active students. So I'm able to get to that data. Again, it's not really a deal breaker. As Natalie said, when we used SchoolMessenger in the old days, maybe 3 or 4 students per year would ever ask because the link was dead. But it is a nice feature from time to time. And what we found by using this or using any of these systems, it makes dealing with FERPA requests a lot simpler, because the parents can access this, their lawyers can access this and print almost everything that they're asking for in a FERPA request. So it's helpful on that end too. And that's it. I think the last slide's if you're interested in getting it, that's the guy to talk to.
All right, Matt, thanks. Any questions for Matt? Okay, super. Thanks again, Matt. So I want, for any of these applications, is there a record limit to submit at one time? Do we need to break them by grade first, or can we upload? Tara, good question. Any of you want to comment on Tara's question there?
Yeah, for SchoolMessenger there is. That's why we keep them broken apart. And I can't remember, it's in the thousands of records that can be in a single message. So for NWEA, what we do is we have one file that does our elementary 3 through 5 and a second file that does 6 through 8. So you don't have to have it by every school or every grade. You could if you wanted to, but there is a limit. And is Tara in Waterbury?
Waterbury, yeah.
Yeah. So Tara, you might have to have a couple more files than we do because we have 5,400 kids.
I have hit the limit for Conductor Plus once or twice, and then I just loaded by grade level, and that solved it for us. But we're not a giant district. So when I got over 2,000 records, it seemed to slow it down. But again, this was a few years ago. They've improved the system since then. But if you do by grade level, you should be fine.
Yeah, on the Fairfield side, we don't have a limit because the processing's done on our end anyway, so we don't have a file limit for that at all. The max size we've ever done simultaneously is about 6,000, and no issues there. And then on the upload side, storage, generally storage is not really an issue for most of these vaulting systems. Obviously, you're paying for it and it's cheap, or you have unlimited storage, but we're only talking, about a gig or so for every particular assessment. So it's not a very large limit, but we may be more unique because of the fact that we're kind of doing that processing in-house. Versus a solution that may have their own limits, but yeah.
ParentSquare has a very high limit. We've never hit it because we don't have that many reports we're sending out, 9,000 pages at a time.
Okay. Thanks, everyone. Tara, hopefully that helps you. Any other questions? Either for Matt or generally? Are the PDF reports sent by the state WCAG compliant checking for? Yes, I believe, yeah. From our side, yes. I don't think, and I think that translates then into the district as not an issue. As Catherine, does that help? Okay. Any other questions? Okay, we have one more tool. I've been in communication with PowerSchool, and again, what we've tried to do today is really put all the cards on the table for, depending on the district, your district situation, and you might be using one versus the other, but I've been in communication, or we've been in communication with PowerSchool. They do have another tool called Digital Document Delivery, and I'm not going to try to present on this. This is just more like creating awareness here that this tool can be used, from what I understand from PowerSchool. There's also a charge for this. I would encourage you to contact your PowerSchool rep if you have particular questions about it. This is, again, one slide that they provided me. I've been in contact with the point for PowerSchool for the purpose of this webinar, and they provided this as an FYI. So if you have an interest in that, please reach out to them. So again, I want to thank all our presenters today, James and Marco, Natalie, Matt, and Sue. Thank you very much, and thank you to all of you for attending. Just as a reminder, to recap, again, we still will be delivering our 2 reports this past year, or this forthcoming year in August, to the secure inboxes for DAs, and also paper. Next year, we will be doing 1 copy of the paper and the delivery to the DAs in the secure inbox, and then in 26-27, that's when we have the complete phase out, and we will be dropping paper completely. And again, just to reiterate, I think I had hinted at a previous meeting, the DA workshops in January, that we might be able to kind of finagle 1 copy potentially for emergency purposes. We are really shutting the door in 26-27, where we will be going fully digital at that point. I saw a hand go up. John, was that John Taylor? Were you just saying hi? I don't know. All right. Seeing no more questions, we hope that this was informational. Thanks again to our presenters. Thanks to you for all attending, and have a great afternoon and good luck for the next few days of testing. I know we finish up this Friday, so we'll see you. Thanks.